I used to think Christmas would always feel the same. Familiar, warm, safe. But that year, the one when I came home after my first full year of living away, everything felt different. And not just because the snow came late or Mom finally gave up on our weird glowing reindeer in the yard. It was because of him. Liam, my brother's best friend. I hadn't seen Liam in over a year, not since the summer after high school, when I moved to New York for college and he stayed back in our hometown to work construction with his dad. We weren't exactly close, but we'd always had this strange kind of connection. He was 2 years older, loud, charming, the type of guy who made everyone in a room gravitate toward him. I never knew what it was, but he always had a way of looking at me that stuck in my head a little too long. So when my brother Jake texted to say Liam was spending Christmas with us because his mom was traveling and his dad was working late shifts, I froze for a second before typing, "Cool, of course." Liam showing up wasn't a huge surprise. But the way I reacted to seeing him again, that was. He came through the door wearing a flannel jacket, his hair longer than I remembered, a little scruff on his jaw, and that same easy confidence. He hugged me like no time had passed, arms around me tight, like we were old friends. "Damn," he said, grinning. "College made you soft." I laughed awkwardly. "You smell like a campfire." He grinned wider. "Better than beer and sweat like I used to, right?" We all stayed up that night in the basement, watching Elf, and arguing about whether or not Die Hard counts as a Christmas movie. Jake passed out around midnight, curled up in the recliner with a half-eaten candy cane in his hand. Liam and I stayed up. Just the two of us. We sat on opposite ends of the couch at first, but slowly, without saying anything, he shifted closer. The room was dark except for the flicker of the TV, and the heat from the fireplace made the space feel warmer than it should have. "You look different," he said out of nowhere. "Yeah," I replied, trying to keep it casual. "College'll do that." "Nah, not just that. You carry yourself different." His eyes didn't leave mine. In a good way. I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. A few more quiet moments passed before he spoke again. "You seeing anyone?" The question was casual, but it landed hard. I shook my head. "Not really." He nodded, slow, thoughtful. "That's good." "That's good?" I didn't know what that meant, but I felt something buzz in my chest. He leaned back and didn't say anything else for a long time. Eventually, we both fell asleep on the couch, the space between us barely there. I woke up around 3 a.m., and his leg was resting lightly against mine. When I woke up, the room was quiet, dimly lit by the morning light bleeding in through the small basement window. The TV had turned itself off at some point, and Jake was gone, probably upstairs raiding the leftovers. But Liam was still there, still asleep on the couch. He was facing me, his cheek resting on the pillow, one arm curled under his head. He looked peaceful in a way I'd never seen before, not the usual confident, loud-mouthed guy the first remembered. Just soft, real. His leg was still touching mine, barely, just enough to make my chest tighten. I didn't move. I just watched him for a second, letting myself look longer than I probably should have. Then he stirred, slowly opening his eyes. His gaze landed on me, still half asleep, and he blinked. "Morning," he mumbled, voice low and rough from sleep. "Hey," I whispered. We didn't move, not at first. It felt like we were both waiting to see who would break the moment first. Eventually, he sat up and stretched, the hem of his t-shirt lifting just a little to reveal his stomach. I looked away quickly, pretending I hadn't noticed. "Damn," he said, rubbing his eyes. "How do you still look exactly the same after sleeping on this crappy couch?" I smirked. "Must be all that college stress. Preserves you like a raisin." He laughed, and it felt good to hear. Natural. Comfortable. "You hungry?" I asked, standing up and stretching out the stiffness from my back. "Starving," he said, following me upstairs. In the kitchen, Mom was already working on breakfast. Dad was reading the paper, same as always. Jake was halfway through a plate of waffles. Liam slid into the seat next to me, nudging my leg under the table. I flinched, but he just gave me a small smile, one that didn't quite match his usual playful tone. The rest of the day passed in a blur of family errands, cookie baking, wrapping gifts, and pretending not to notice how Liam kept finding excuses to be near me. Helping carry the groceries in? He took the bag I was holding, his hand brushing mine. Hanging up lights outside? He held the ladder steady, looking up at me like he wasn't really focused on the bulbs. And during lunch, when everyone was too busy talking about New Year's plans, he leaned in close and whispered, "Still not dating anyone?" I turned to look at him, raising an eyebrow. "Still asking?" He shrugged. "Just curious." But it didn't feel casual. Not anymore. That evening, after dinner, we all ended up in the living room watching old Christmas home videos. Liam sat on the floor beside the couch, his back leaning against it while I sat above him, my knees brushing his shoulder every now and then. It was subtle, but I caught him glancing back at me more than once, like he was thinking about saying something but couldn't quite work up to it. Later, after everyone had gone to bed, I stayed up in the kitchen finishing a glass of water, the house finally quiet again. I didn't hear him come in. "You always stay up late like this?" Liam's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him leaning in the doorway, arms crossed, barefoot in flannel pajama pants and a hoodie. His hair was still a little messy from earlier, and he looked soft again, vulnerable. "Sometimes," I said, "can't sleep." He walked over, standing next to me by the sink. For a few seconds, we both just looked out the window, watching snow start to fall. The streetlight outside made everything glow faintly gold. "Thanks for not making it weird," he said suddenly. I glanced over. "What do you mean?" "This, us hanging out. I didn't know if it'd feel different, now that we're older." "It does feel different," I said before I could stop myself. He looked at me then. Really looked. "Yeah?" I nodded, heart beating faster than it should have. He hesitated, then said quietly, "Not in a bad way, though, right?" I swallowed. "No, not bad." We stood there, a little too close, the space between us charged in a way I couldn't explain. Then he stepped back. "Night," he said softly. "Night," I replied. But I didn't sleep much that night either. The next morning, the snow had really started to stick. Everything outside was white and quiet, and the air smelled like pine and cinnamon and whatever candle my mom had burning that day. It was the kind of morning that should have felt light, festive. But everything between me and Liam felt charged. Like something was about to break open if one of us pushed just a little harder. Jake was too busy helping Dad untangle Christmas lights to notice anything. Mom had sent us to pick out a tree from the lot just a few blocks away. "You good to walk?" Liam asked, zipping up his jacket. "Yeah," I said. "It's not far." We set off, the world around us muffled by fresh snow. Our boots crunched softly, and our breath came out in little puffs. "I always like this time of year," he said after a while. "It's the only time our town doesn't feel like a dead zone." I laughed. "Yeah, snow makes everything look nicer than it actually is." We walked in silence for a minute, then he asked, "Did you ever miss it? Like, while you were away?" I thought about that. "Sometimes. Not the town, but certain people." His eyes flicked toward me. "Yeah?" I nodded. "Yeah." We didn't say anything else after that. We just picked out the tree, a big one, way too tall, and dragged it back to the house, grunting and laughing like idiots the whole way. Once we got it inside, Mom disappeared to find the ornament boxes. Jake was already back to playing video games. Liam and I were left alone with the tree in the living room, brushing off snow and trying to make it stand straight in the stand. "Here, hold it like this," he said, crouching next to me. Our hands met under the branches. His fingers wrapped over mine to adjust the grip. The contact sent a jolt through me. I didn't pull away. "Better," he said quietly, but he didn't move his hand. I looked at him. His face was close, closer than it needed to be. "You've been acting weird," I said, my voice lower than I intended. He raised an eyebrow. "Weird how?" "I don't know," I said. "You're different." He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Maybe I am." The way he looked at me then, there was nothing casual about it. It was the kind of look that makes your stomach drop and your throat tighten, like you're about to say something you can't take back. But then Jake came stomping down the stairs, yelling about us messing up the stand, and the moment broke. Liam stepped back fast, like nothing had happened. We finished setting up the tree without talking much. But later that night, when we were decorating it, Liam kept reaching for the same ornaments I did. Our hands touched more than once, and every time they did, neither of us moved away. After dinner, my mom insisted on taking pictures. Jake ducked out, claiming he looked like a mess, and Dad was already asleep in the recliner. That left me and Liam in front of the tree while she adjusted the camera. "Closer, boys," she said. "Act like you like each other." Liam slung an arm around my shoulders and pulled me in. "Happy?" I could feel the weight of his arm, the warmth through our shirts. "Sure," I said, but I didn't sound convincing. He leaned in, voice low, meant only for me. "I wasn't pretending." I glanced up at him, but Mom clicked the photo before I could respond. Then she was off to post it on Facebook or text it to my aunt or something, and we were left standing there, arms still around me. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Are you?" He didn't answer. That night, I went to bed early just to get away from it all. I told myself I needed rest. But the truth was, I didn't know what the hell was going on anymore. At midnight, I heard a soft knock on my bedroom door. When I opened it, Liam was standing there in a hoodie and sweatpants, hair a little messy, looking unsure for the first time in his life. "Can we talk?" he asked. I stepped aside, heart hammering in my chest, and let Liam into my room. He looked around like he hadn't been in there in years, which, to be fair, he hadn't. Everything was basically how I left it after high school. Posters I never took down, shelves lined with books I barely touched anymore. A few things felt embarrassingly juvenile now, and I suddenly became hyper-aware of all of it. He sat on the edge of my bed, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. I stayed standing. "You all right?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked up at me, and for once he didn't deflect with a joke or a smirk. "I don't know," he said. "I think I'm freaking out a little." "About what?" His mouth moved like he was working through a dozen different things to say. Then he landed on, "You." My throat tightened. "What about me?" He let out a breath, rubbing his hands together. "I didn't think seeing you again would feel like this. I figured we'd hang out, joke around, talk shit about Jake, and that'd be it. But..." He trailed off. "But what?" I asked, softer now. He looked up. "But I keep thinking about you. About how you've changed. About how I feel when I'm around you. And it's messing me up, man." I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. Liam stood up, running a hand through his hair. "You probably think I'm some confused idiot right now." "No," I said immediately. "I don't." He looked surprised. "I don't think that," I repeated. The silence between us stretched, full of everything neither of us had said for years. "I'm not trying to screw with you," he said. "I swear, I've just never felt like this before. Not with a guy. Not with anyone, really. It's not just attraction. It's like, when I'm with you, I don't want to leave." That was it. That was the moment where everything cracked open. I walked over to him, slow, unsure, and stood barely a foot away. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because if I waited any longer," he said, "I think I'd regret it for the rest of my life." His eyes searched mine, waiting, hoping, scared. And I realized something in that moment. I wasn't scared. I was done pretending I didn't feel it too. So I reached out and rested my hand lightly on his chest. "I'm glad you told me." Liam didn't move for a second. Then, slowly, like he wasn't sure if it was okay, he leaned in, just enough for our foreheads to touch. "Is this crazy?" he whispered. "Yeah," I said. "A little, but not bad crazy?" "No," I whispered. "Not bad." He let out a shaky laugh, and then, finally, he kissed me. It was soft, careful, like he didn't want to rush it. But there was something deeper behind it, too, like he'd been holding back for years and was only just now letting himself feel it. When we pulled apart, he looked at me like he still couldn't believe what just happened. I've wanted to do that since, like, that Christmas years ago, when we watched Home Alone and you fell asleep on my shoulder. I blinked. You remember that? He smiled. Yeah, I remember everything. I didn't know what to say. My head was spinning, but in the best way. I sat down beside him, our knees touching, neither of us moving away this time. So, he said quietly, what happens now? I looked over at him. We don't have to figure everything out tonight. He nodded. Yeah, okay. But, I added, you're staying in here tonight. Right? Liam didn't hesitate. He just smiled and said, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. Waking up next to Liam felt surreal. The morning light crept in through my blinds, soft and gray, the kind that only comes with snow-covered rooftops. My room was quiet, except for the faint hum of the heater and the steady rhythm of his breathing beside me. We hadn't done anything dramatic the night before, just kissed, talked, and eventually laid down next to each other under the same blanket. But even that felt huge. I turned my head slowly. He was still asleep, one arm tucked under the pillow, the other resting between us. His face looked more peaceful than I was used to. No jokes, no smirk, just Liam, calm and unguarded. I could have stayed like that for hours, but a loud knock on the door ruined it. Breakfast! Jake's voice shouted through the wood. Mom says if you're not down in 10, she's coming up with a wooden spoon. Liam groaned, rubbing his eyes. Your family's aggressive. I laughed. You've known that since 6th grade. He blinked at me, slow and still a little dazed. Did last night actually happen? Yeah, I said. It did. He gave a tiny smile, but I could see the nerves behind it. Still okay with it? I asked. He nodded. More than okay. Just hoping your parents don't notice me sneaking out of your room. I snorted. Too late. Jake's already telling them you spent the night in here. He's probably downstairs placing bets. Liam grinned now. If your mom makes Christmas cookies early, I'll forgive him. We got up, pulling on hoodies and pajama pants, and made our way downstairs, trying to look casual. But the second we walked into the kitchen, Jake raised an eyebrow. Look who's coming down together, he said around a mouthful of toast. My mom didn't say anything, just gave us both a knowing smile and pointed to the eggs. It was Christmas Eve, and the house felt full in a way I hadn't realized I'd missed. There was music playing softly from the living room, some old Michael Bublé Christmas album my mom loved, and the smell of cinnamon rolls baking in the oven made the whole place feel like something out of a holiday movie. After breakfast, we all went outside to build the snowman. Dad insisted was tradition even though no one remembered ever doing it before. Liam stayed close, not in a clingy way, just present. Our arms brushed when we walked. He threw snowballs at me and pretended to miss, even though he obviously wasn't trying. At one point, when Jake ran inside to grab his gloves, Liam looked over at me and asked quietly, You think this is real? Like not just a holiday thing? I didn't even hesitate. Yeah, I do. He nodded slowly, like he'd been afraid I might say the opposite. Back inside, Mom handed out ornaments for us to finish decorating the tree. Liam got a plastic snowflake with his name on it from the year he was 10, some old gift my mom had hung on to for no reason. He laughed, but I could see the way he looked at it. Like it meant more than he wanted to admit. That night, we all gathered in the living room for the usual Christmas movie marathon. Jake fell asleep halfway through the Santa Claus, as usual. My parents went to bed not long after. Liam and I stayed up. We didn't say much, just sat together under the blanket, the Christmas tree glowing beside us, the room quiet except for the TV playing softly in the background. He looked over at me. I know this sounds dumb, but this is the first Christmas in years I felt good. I nodded because I knew exactly what he meant. It's not dumb, I said. It's the first one that feels real to me too. We didn't kiss then. We didn't need to. We just sat there, letting it sink in that something had changed, something big and quiet and important. I woke up to the sound of laughter downstairs, Jake's voice, loud and dramatic, complaining that someone had eaten half the cinnamon rolls before he got there. It was Christmas morning, and for the first time in a long time, I actually felt excited. Liam was already up, sitting on the edge of the bed, pulling on a hoodie. He glanced back at me and smiled, and it wasn't just a polite morning smile. It was something softer, more familiar now. "Merry Christmas," he said. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. "Merry Christmas." He leaned over and kissed me quickly, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Come on," he said, "before Jake hoards all the good gifts." Downstairs, the living room looked like a winter catalog exploded. Wrapping paper everywhere, my dad sipping coffee in his robe, my mom snapping photos on her phone like she always did. Jake was already halfway through unwrapping his haul and bragging about the socks he got like they were designer sneakers. Liam and I sat together on the floor. Close, but not too close. I was still hyper-aware of how much space was okay in front of my parents. But Mom? She just smiled at us. She handed Liam his gift like it was the most normal thing in the world, as if he'd always been part of the family. And maybe he had been, just not like this. After presents, after brunch, after Jake begged everyone to watch that stupid animated Christmas special from when we were kids, Liam and I finally got a moment alone again. We went out to the backyard, bundled up in jackets and gloves, hot chocolate in hand. The snow had stopped overnight, but everything was still blanketed in white. The world looked still. He walked over to the wooden bench near the fence and sat down, motioning for me to join him. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. "Just thinking." I sat beside him. He was quiet for a second, then he said, "I keep waiting for this to feel wrong, or confusing, or like I've made a mistake." "And?" He looked at me. "And it doesn't. It just feels right. Like I should have figured this out a long time ago." My breath caught a little. "Liam, are you saying?" "I don't know what label fits me," he said quickly. "I'm not ready for that. But I know I care about you. I know I want this. And I don't want to go back to pretending I don't." I nodded, heart pounding. "You don't have to label anything. I'm not going anywhere." He smiled, relieved, and leaned in to kiss me again. Longer this time, slower. The kind of kiss that says, "I've been thinking about this for a long time." When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "This might be the best Christmas I've ever had." I laughed. "It's definitely the weirdest one I've ever had. But in a good way," he said. "In a great way." We sat there for a while, our drinks going cold, not caring, just watching the snow sparkle under the afternoon sun. Later that night, after dinner and board games and one last round of family chaos, we ended up in my room again. This time, it wasn't about figuring things out. It wasn't about nervous tension or awkward silences. It was just us. The next morning, the house was quiet. Jake had already left early to see his girlfriend, and my parents were out walking the dog around the neighborhood. For the first time in days, it was just me and Liam again. We stayed in bed longer than we should have. Not out of laziness, but because there was something about the quiet that felt safe, like the spell of the last few days hadn't broken yet. He lay on his side, facing me, his hair a little messy, his smile a little sleepy. "You know I leave in a few days," I said. He nodded. "I know. And I don't want this to just fade out. Once I go back to school and you go back to your job." He reached out and took my hand, threading his fingers through mine. "Then don't let it fade." I looked at him. "You mean that?" "Yeah. I don't care if it's messy or if we don't know what we're doing. I want to try. I want to keep this going." I didn't say anything at first, just squeezed his hand. Because hearing him say he wanted this too, was something I hadn't let myself hope for until now. "I never thought this would happen," I admitted. "Not with you. Not here. Not like this." He gave me this look, half amused, half serious. "Yeah, well, I didn't think I'd spend Christmas falling for my best friend's brother, but here we are." I laughed, and then I kissed him again. A slow, deliberate kind of kiss. The kind you give someone when you're not afraid anymore. The rest of the day passed quietly. We helped clean up the kitchen, packed away decorations, and later took a walk through the neighborhood just as the sun was setting, everything glowing in that soft winter light. He kept bumping into me on purpose, teasing like he used to when we were younger. But now it felt different. Everything did. That night, before we went to sleep, he pulled me close and whispered, "You think Jake's gonna kill me when he figures this out?" "Honestly," I said, "probably." He laughed into my shoulder. Worth it. A few days later, when he dropped me off at the train station, the goodbye didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the start of something we'd both been too afraid to admit we wanted. He hugged me tight and said, "I'll come visit. Soon." "You better," I said. He kissed me once, quick but certain, and then I watched him walk back to his truck, hands in his jacket pockets, the snow just starting to fall again. And I realized something as I stood there, that Christmas didn't just give me something to remember, it gave me someone.